ZoomieLink is the hub for connecting you to the larger Air Force Academy graduate community. See how your fellow graduates are already gathering online to discuss, advise, and serve. Connect with graduates at all stages of life and start a conversation about careers, transition tips, and preparing for your future. And with ZoomieLink now open to all current Academy cadets, the time for connecting to the graduate community is more important than ever. Sign up at ZoomieLink.org and start connecting today. Brought to you by the Association of Graduates and the Air Force Academy Foundation.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Association of Graduates and Air Force Academy Foundation's special presentation, Grads in Cyber. My name is Cadet First Class Jody Dalton, and I will be your moderator for this virtual panel. I'm a part of the class of 2021 and a member of Cadet Squadron 13. I'm a double major, computer science and cyber science, as well as a Chinese minor. I'm also this year's Cadet Cyber Team Captain. After graduation, I plan on becoming a cyber warfare operations officer and will be attending the Air Force Institute of Technology to receive a master's degree. This evening, I will be joined by 4 other U.S. Air Force Academy graduates to discuss their real-life personal journeys in cyber and answer any questions from our audience. Let me begin by introducing our panelists. Captain Catherine Toad Lawal is an instructor of computer science at the Academy. Previously, she planned and executed cyberspace operations as a flight commander and cyber attack operator. Captain Lawal graduated with honors from the U.S. Air Force Academy in 2012 and most recently graduated from the Cyber Warfare Operations Weapons Instructor course as a distinguished graduate. Lieutenant Colonel Renee Wright graduated from the Academy with the class of 1999 and is the Assistant Director and Chief Technology Innovations Officer, Communications and Cyber Forces at Tyndall Air Force Base, Florida. Lieutenant Colonel Wright has over 21 years of active duty service in leading and managing as an officer in the U.S. Air Force and Florida Air National Guard at the Squadron, Group, Center, CNAV/AOC, MAJCOM, and COCOM levels. Major Cross is a cyber warfare officer in the Air Force and is currently serving as Deputy Chief of the Air Force Sensitive Activities Office in Washington, D.C. He received his Bachelor of Science degree in Computer Science with Information Warfare concentration from the U.S. Air Force Academy in 2006. Major Cross continued his education at the University of the Pacific and received a Master's in Information Systems Management. Major Cross is a certified information systems security professional. Mr. Matt Kennedy is currently a reservist at Hobart Field, Florida, as a cyberspace operations instructor. Prior to his current assignment, Mr. Kennedy was an intel officer and eventually cross-trained to become a cyber warfare officer and has deployed multiple times. Mr. Kennedy graduated from the U.S. Air Force Academy in 2008 with a Bachelor of Science degree in Social Sciences. Again, I would like to thank everyone for joining us this evening. It is now time for our first question. Captain Lawal, as an instructor in the Computer Science Department, what do you feel is the most important role of the Institute for future conflict in the Cyber Center? Additionally, how do you envision the cross-domain integration lab working?
In my opinion, the Institute for Future Conflict should focus on impacts from artificial intelligence. AI is going to change how our adversaries make decisions and how we make decisions. And we really need to start exploring and kind of envisioning what the world's going to look like when AI is central to our strategic and tactical decision-making. What are the consequences, not just from a technical standpoint, but an ethical standpoint, when AI is in the loop, making critical decisions, thinking about possibly even being in the kill chain. Then for the cross-domain integration lab, I'm sure you all have heard for many years buzzword of multi-domain operations. And to be honest, cyber is rarely fully integrated. With a lab like that, we can simulate multi-domain operations in training. And if we expose and educate our future leaders now in what cyber brings to the fight, we can really make multi-domain operations operational in our future. And another one, in addition to cyber is space that's really underutilized and kind of misunderstood by our kinetic brethren. And, we don't want to just slap cyber on at the end of all of our exercises, but really make it a core part of how we conduct operations And it starts with making our labs and our exercises reflect what we want reality to be. Back to you, Jody.
Thank you, Captain Lawal. This next question is for Lieutenant Colonel Wright. With your role as the Assistant Director and Chief Technology Innovation Officer, what do you think can be done to enhance the mindset of future leaders that cybersecurity of weapon systems may be one of the most important parts of accomplishing the mission? Do we have her with us, or did we lose her?
May have dropped her.
We can come back to her. The next one's for Major Cross. With your background as a cyber warfare officer and the education you received after the academy, can you provide a little insight to what the job entails, and what do you recommend for recent grads when it comes to receiving a master's and certifications?
The job as a cyber warfare officer in the Air Force, the first thing that comes to mind is when you get in, your first job is being a leader. But being as a technical degree, it really helps you to solve the problems, solve the technical problems, without having to learn the technical issues, and you'll be able to explain it to the leaders in a way that they can understand it and help push the process forward. Now, when you're trying to get your master's, nowadays the cyber world is wide open. You can get a master's in data analytics, data science, information, artificial intelligence. Those are the key disciplines you want to focus on, because that's where the Air Force is going. And by getting a degree in those disciplines, you'll be able to help the Air Force push forward. As far as your certifications, CISSP is one of the lead ones that you want to get. And as a cyber warfare officer, your initial training, they'll train you up to get a Security Plus off the bat, so you have to worry about studying for that certification. So really focus on which certification will help you to improve the mission that you're focusing on, and that way you can help out the Air Force.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Kennedy, as someone who has transitioned out of active duty into the cyber industry in the civilian world, what was the transition like, and what advice can you give to others?
Yeah, so I transitioned out of active duty, but as you can see, I'm in uniform. I'm actually on orders right now, and I'm here to tell you the process it's scary. It's scary when you're standing at that precipice to take the leap, because the Air Force is really good at creating like a Stockholm syndrome kind of feel and effect on us, because it's all that we know. But there's not a single person I've met in the reserve or the Guard, or even made it to retirement or medically retired, that has regretted leaving active duty. Because as a reservist, you get to choose your job, you get to choose your unit, you get to choose where you go. So you're not in the PCS cycle, and you're not, some faceless name on a piece of paper somewhere that just decides what looks good for your career. So my advice, if you are looking to get out or considering it, or even if you're coming up on retirement, because no matter what, this uniform's coming off, whether you want to or not, you need to figure out your goal. And if your goal is to stay in until you die, go for it. There's plenty of rank for that. But if your goal is to be a technical leader in the cybersecurity career field, like if you want to reverse engineer malware and you really want to get your hands dirty, I would recommend looking at leaving the Air Force at about the 5 to 10 year career, at the 5 to 10 year point, because as soon as you hit major and you're doing staff job, that knowledge and those skills atrophy so quick in this career field. So consider that. But if you want to change the world of cybersecurity and technology, you need to get out, because there's nothing on the leading edge of cyber or computer science that is developed or created by the Air Force. The Air Force, we're great at what we do, but Google, Amazon, Apple, Microsoft, Symantec, Cisco, Boeing, Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, these are the civilians that have changed the world. And all of our weapon systems, they make them. They make them, they maintain them. That's where the engineers are. And if you don't know your goal, that's okay. Go on to Indeed.com or some job search site and just find a job that just lights you on fire, that you want to do. And then look at what they require. Look at how many years that they need, what certifications, what job, and then work toward that goal.
Thank you, sir. Very helpful. This next question was actually addressed to me. It's how do you feel the cadet cyber team has prepared you for a career in cyber? What operational impacts has the team prepared you for? So overall, I think the cyber team has provided me an environment to utilize and practice skills and techniques that encompass a variety of cyber topics. So this is anything from cryptography, the actual hands-on keyboard, all the way to cyber policy. So these are technical skills along with people skills. And I think it's nice to be a part of a community in which everyone is all about cyber. And it's not just the hacking is cool perception of cyber, but it's more about learning actual cyber, like how things work and the real life impact behind it and the importance of all things cyber. Operationally, the cyber team has allowed me to develop my teamwork skills and overall strategies on how to handle complex situations and problems. So as far as operationally is concerned, it's not just the technical skills that I'll be taking as a cyber warfare officer, but also the people skills and just the different leadership skills that I've developed while working with the team. It's taught me how to manage and work with people who come from all different backgrounds, who are all at different skill levels and who all have different strengths and weaknesses. So finding a good way to incorporate all of those into one while still having functionality of a team that can compete, train, and succeed overall is super important. So ultimately, I think the team has laid a solid foundation of various skills that I can take with me and apply operationally in all aspects, not just cyber. Captain Lawal, can you give some insights on what 3 specific steps or actions could the community of the AOG take to improve United States Air Force grads for becoming members of national professional cybersecurity forces, whether it's short-term or long-term?
Sure. First off, I mean, it's not an alumni event if we don't ask you to donate, right? But seriously, everything we do, all the programs we do that are special for cadets here at the Academy really depends on donations, both from just individual alumni and organizations. For example, the cyber team that you're on, for you all to travel every year costs a lot of money to be able to go and do those competitions, where you're building not only those technical skills, but those interpersonal skills and pretending to be a fake business and all kinds of really cool experiences that you just wouldn't be able to do without some funding. Secondly, I'd say connect with us here at the CompSci Cybersci department. We do research programs every year. We have huge capstones we have cadets working on, real life Air Force problems, real life industry problems. That's what we want to take on. That's what we want to work with. So the only way we're going to be able to do that is if you connect with us and let us know what's going on, and we will try to send the best team we can right after that. And then lastly, I'd say mentor, and this can just be in your local community. A lot of us, I think, kind of realized we liked these kinds of things. We liked hacking and messing around with stuff when we were maybe in high school or maybe even middle school. Get involved with a STEM program or Cyber Patriot in your local area would be a great way to start influencing cyber professionals. And, you know, maybe they don't go to the Air Force Academy. Maybe they just end up being a civilian who works hard in cybersecurity. We need everyone we can. This is a whole, not a whole even of government, but a whole of our society's problem that we need to take on. And being there, influencing a young person, it can have huge impacts in their life and where they go.
Thank you, Captain Lawal. Mr. Kennedy, Major Cross, do you guys want to provide anything on that question? Nope. Okay. The next question is, what is the greatest risk for our future cyber infrastructure? Major Cross, I'm sure you can contribute to this.
Cyber is like a fast-moving train. We have to constantly modernize our equipment and constantly look at what's changing in the global sphere and what's new attacks, what 0 days are out there. Because if we don't modernize, that's our biggest weakest link in our infrastructure, is not updating our equipment, updating our processes to adapt to the new environment that's going on globally. So that's our biggest risk is getting comfortable in what we're doing, because just because something works today, as you've seen with 5G, tomorrow it could totally be obsolete because it's moving at the speed of cyber. And so we have to move at that speed when we're looking at our infrastructure and constantly modernize and do research and always be ahead of the curve, because the curve is the train's gonna leave us if we don't stay ahead of the game.
Thank you, sir. The next question is, how might we leverage the total force to maximize the Air Force's superiority in rapidly growing and increasingly competitive domains like cyberspace? Mr. Kennedy?
Yeah, I'd like to take that, since I guess I'm technically part of the total force, being a reservist and a contractor. First is realizing that total force is everyone. Captain Lawal touched on a little bit of this is everyone's problem, and that is 100% true. So realizing, number one, the total force isn't just the Air Force, active duty, the Air Force, National Guard, and the Air Force Reserve. It's the Marines, it's the Navy, it's the Coast Guard, it's the Department of Homeland Security, it's the FBI, it's contractors, it's the Canadians, it's the Brits, it's the Aussies, it's Microsoft, it's everyone. A lot of our goals align, and we've had a lot of, even academia. We've interacted with Duke before to help protect their infrastructure and their intellectual property. So leveraging the total force is recognizing that it is everyone, and it's okay that with classifications, if you get a chance to work with Cybercom and some of the missions, it's okay to ask permission, or your foreign disclosure officer or your clearance officers to see if you can reach out. And then there's some liaison somewhere plugged into some company that just wants to help out. And it's extraordinary what you're able to do as a total force. And then the other best way is just to trust and empower one another. I made that mistake. I fell into that pitfall when I first got into cyber of just like sizing people up when I walked into a room. Very quickly, I learned I was easily the dumbest and most uneducated person in the room of what was going on. And the people that I wanted to rely on typically were Army warrant officers. They were extraordinary. I was blown away. And the National Guard, a lot of Microsoft Red Team and Google and antivirus people lurking around the National Guard, and even a few state senators, if you come across any of the Maryland National Guard. So that's weird. And he's enlisted, which is even weirder because you have to call Mr. Senator. It's like a whole thing. So total force, recognize who it is and what it is, and reach out to them, and trust and empower.
Thank you, sir. I'd like to welcome back Lieutenant Colonel Wright. She had some technical difficulties there. But while you were away, ma'am, we got a question for you.
Yep.
It is, with your role as the Assistant Director and Chief Technology Innovation Officer, what do you think can be done to enhance the mindset of future leaders that cybersecurity of weapon systems may be one of the most important parts of accomplishing the mission?
All right, so first of all, that's a great question. Ensuring our weapon systems are secure from cyber attack is definitely one of the most important aspects for an operational commander in accomplishing the mission. Weapon system program officers are doing a lot better job of baking in cybersecurity when they develop programs, but there's still a lot of that bolting on. You'll hear about cybersecurity being bolted on. So that's why it's important that we develop our leaders to focus on mission assurance for operational commanders. So that was back to your question. First, I would say the most important thing that we can do to develop them is look for assignments that look for operational assignments. So you have the opportunity to defend weapon systems at the tactical level, such as leading mission defense teams that you hear about. A lot of those are standing up across the Air Force right now. I had the opportunity to be assigned to the 601st AOC, which is the Air and Space Operations Center. At the time, they did not have a mission defense team. They do today. But I can tell you that cybersecurity has been a priority for the AOC commander, and then also the numbered Air Force commander, who serves as the JFAC, the Joint Force Air Component Commander. And that's where I'm assigned today. And so it's an operational nav. So I get an opportunity to see, that cyber is the number one priority for the commanders. The second thing is continued education and training throughout your career. We're here to fly, fight, and win. And so we need to make sure that we ensure mission assurance basically for the warfighter. And so I know Cadet Dalton, you get to go to AFIT after the academy. So awesome. Congratulations on that.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yep. And for other cadets, after graduation, you'll have a chance to get to AFIT, other means, basically other opportunities as a lieutenant, as a captain, and then as a major and a lieutenant colonel through IDE and SDE, developmental education. Also, you'll have your UCT undergrad cyber training, and then 200, 300, 400 throughout your career. Make sure you try to meet those gates early if you can. Try to get ahead of your peers. That'll make you more competitive. Understanding our mission set. MDTs will go through functional mission analysis training at Maxwell. And then I know Matt can tell us probably more about the courses over at Herbert, just down the road from where I am. Another thing, awesome. Stay plugged into your academy classmate network, because they'll be able to share a lot what's going across the Air Force throughout your career and beyond. Another thing that I've really found, noteworthy the last few years is to stay engaged and be aware of what your senior leaders in your career field, what their priorities are. So attend conferences and basically make sure you're plugged into their priorities and your commander's priorities. But bottom line is to stay engaged. Don't get stovepipe and really gain that operational experience.
Thank you, ma'am. Excellent answer. With all that being said, can you speak a little on what you think the cyber field will look like a few years from now?
Yes, ma'am. So for the operational Air Force, you probably heard a lot about the cyber squadrons that are standing up. And ACC just put out word that Buckley Air Force Base, their cyber squadron stood up. So it's IOC, Initial Operational Capability, because they were the first base to get ITAS, which is the Enterprise IT as a Service initiative, stood up. So AT&T's basically taken over their network. So that will free up blue suiters to defend the missions there at Buckley, the operational mission sets, the flying missions. And so ITAS is where contractors take over the network, contractor owned, contractor operated. We're doing something very similar at Tyndall right now. We're not under the ITAS umbrella, but due to Hurricane Michael and the Tyndall rebuild and being base of the future, we have a lot of initiatives going on. So AT&T, we just transitioned to their VoIP phone switch, and they've basically put in the base area network infrastructure. So we've been cutting over to that. Everything's been going well. And then as the F-35s and the MQ-9s roll in 2023 and through 2025, those blue suiters can transition and defend those systems for those operational mission sets. And I just kind of wrote down briefly how, our career field has changed since I graduated from the academy a long, long time ago. Just real briefly, though, when we graduated, our career field was a 3.3S, which is comm info. So we were more IT support and not cyber. The .coms were big. If you remember the .com bubble in '99, when a lot of them crashed, but Google was one of those. They went public in, I think, 2004. And I remember at my first assignment at DIAS, when one of the airmen assigned to the comm squadron came in. I was an exec at the time, and he showed me Google, and I was like, wow, this search engine is awesome, And for our career field, combat comm was the tip of the spear. If you weren't combat comm, in your career field, you weren't in it. And so now if you're not in cyber, you're not in it. Air Force bases were one base, one network. Some bases even were known to have multiple networks. But things kind of all changed in 2008. I remember Operation Buckshot Yankee. That was when, you can Google it if you want to know more about it, but basically one of the largest network attacks on the DoD. So that took about 14 months actually to clear that worm from the network. And then shortly thereafter, in August of 2009, is when AFCyber stood up. And then everything really changed after that. Our AFSC changed to 17 Delta for NetOps and 17S for cyber warfare in 2010. 2013, collapsed all the base networks to the AFNet so we can secure and defend the network and watch out for the bad guys. And then very recently, 2018, the Air Force, kind of out of the CIO office, started standing up initiatives like CyberWorks, which is actually there at the Academy. I got to attend an event there last year, and it was awesome. So trying to do, a new way of doing business, partner with industry, do things faster, and build in cybersecurity a lot more smartly and effectively, and not, really bog down the systems, kind of like the way the AFNet is right now. You can't really use it too much because of all the cybersecurity layers built in. And then, of course, in 2019, the 24th and the 25th merged to create the 16th Air Force. So you can see the relationships between Intel and cyber and how that's going to continue to grow. But personally, I'm excited to see what the Center for Cyber Innovation at the Academy does. I know I've read a lot about it, and I've seen, kind of a little about what it's going to do, but I'm excited to see how the Academy will drive the development of cyber officers for the future.
Yes, ma'am. Captain Lawal, you had some insight on this question as well.
Well, I kind of wanted to answer a little differently. What do I want it to look like? What is it going to look like? What do I want? What is my dream? So I'm from kind of the other side of our career field. I grew up in the offensive units, and that's where I spent my time before I came here to teach at the academy. And our career field is so varied. It's very different. We have a lot of missions that we are responsible for, and about 2 years ago, they saw us all as the same. You were a core 17D. You could go from this very specialized job that I was in and be sent to a base comm unit, and it's just night and day kind of world. And what I believe it was last year or earlier this year, last year, we all got split out into different silos. And now we're supposed to be getting our in-depth kind of technical, like stay in your specialty and get saturated in that specialty. And so I see us going even deeper for our younger, more junior officers into those technical specialties, becoming experts at being a base comm flight commander, being an expert in an offensive operator, and delving into that, not just technically, but also on those soft skills. Because, I navigated a very different world operationally than my base comm counterparts. I was dealing with cybercomm, with AFCyber, a totally different organization and way that we operated. And so I want to see my part of the career field grow deeper into like offensive operations. Like let's do some more IO, some information operations warfare. Now we're under the 16th Air Force, like the colonel was talking about. Let's see ourselves go deeper into that, to become closer to our intel brethren, and really kind of expand like what we are capable of. We have so much that we could do that we don't for various reasons, and I would love to see us out there on the international stage a little bit more. Of course, below conflict, right? Because we're always kind of in the cyber world, right? We're always kind of having this tension of fighting off, attacks every day. And well, let's poke a little bit ourselves, right? Let's get there at the same level. And now, well, again, I'm not advocating for some kind of cyber attack or something like that. But I'm saying, our adversaries are doing it every day. Maybe we need to up our game and be ready to stand toe to toe with them in the cyber world. And we're only going to do that by going farther in depth in our specialties for certain jobs and certain particular operations.
Thank you, ma'am. Our next question was, how do we mobilize to fight misinformation/disinformation online? Do we have anyone that would like to speak on that topic?
Sure, I'll jump in. So I came out of the Air Force Academy, and I was an intel officer for active duty 9 years, and I just recently transferred over to become a 17S through virtue of my civilian and contractor job. So in that, we did a lot of training with military deception, disinformation, information operations, and now there's even a new Air Force specialty code, AFSC, the 16 Foxtrot, 16F, and that's really their wheelhouse. How does an individual do it? You got to start way ahead before you hear something. You need to be able to, I guess, look at a piece of information, remove kind of like the adjectives and even some of the pronouns that you need to get to the nouns and the verbs. So when you see something, and I'll just say it, you know, something on Twitter about election fraud and it's by this person that people don't like, it's like, okay, you need to remove everything like the adjectives of like, oh, this is allegations, and get down to the actual what is being said. And then after you find that out, you can go to Google, and then you can go to DuckDuckGo, and you can place them side by side each other, and you can see, and it's very interesting how different the algorithms suddenly are about certain topics. So really, it's educating yourself. There's not any formal training program that I've really seen online or open source that you could do, but it's there's a really good book. It's called Thinking Fast and Slow. And if you read that a couple times, you can really start virtually anything anyone tells you, you just break it down immediately. And so when you hear something from CNN, you already know exactly where their paycheck's coming from, what their incentive is for telling you what they're telling you, and you can parse through all the details and get down to, all right, what are they actually reporting on? Okay, so this is their bias. Let me go find the other bias. And now let me go find the actual, .gov, .edu, or court affidavit legislation that you're looking for about it. So to fight disinformation, I hate to say it, it's on us, it's on you. I haven't really, I'd say Snopes, but Snopes is no good anymore. In Intel, we can't use Snopes. It's gone as a reputable source with resources. That's my 2 cents. Give it to anyone else that wants it.
I would just piggyback. You need to go to the source. Like look for source documents when something comes out. Breaking news. Don't freak out and go, okay, this guy has it all. Because they probably just took a paragraph or a sentence from a document and took half of the sentence and then add their own spin to it. But when you go to the actual document and read it, you go, that's not what it's actually saying. So the real way of fighting disinformation is to find the source documents, read them. Don't rely on anybody else to interpret information for you. Go to the source documents, read them for yourself, and that's how you'll really, avoid disinformation, because you have the truth, the ground truth, not interpreted truth. Anybody else?
I just add that think about it before you share, right? Don't be part of the spreading of the misinformation. Just because you see something outrageous come up on your Facebook feed, stop, think about it for a second. Do I really want to share this, or am I becoming part of the problem?
And just to piggyback on that, I'd say with social media, it's really hard these days to even figure out what's misinformation, and what's valid information, because it can spread like wildfire so fast. And you just really got to watch out what you're reading and what sources are out there.
Thank you. The next question that came in was for me, and asked me to discuss my Capstone project. So for those that don't know, as a senior at the Air Force Academy, each department, you will be taking a Capstone class where they divide all the majors into different teams, and you're given a certain topic to explore, kind of create research, go along that. I am partnered with five other cadets for a cyber capstone project, and we were tasked with developing an AI using a zero-shot algorithm to classify malicious network traffic. There's a lot of technical terms in there. Zero-shot artificial intelligence is basically an AI that has the ability to learn on its own and classify new data. So you will train the AI with known things, and then the AI on itself, when it's given unknown things, will be able to learn by itself and basically spit out a new classification of what it is. It's a pretty interesting capstone project because a lot of people dedicate their lives to doing something like this. And it hasn't really been done to an effective state. The accuracy doing it is kind of low. So this semester was a lot of research for my capstone team, just because AI isn't a mandatory class here, it's an elective. for those in comp sci and cyber. So a lot of our members hadn't actually taken AI yet. So it was designing small AIs, looking at malicious network traffic, pulling out features, good and bad, from network traffic captures. And next semester, we'll actually be trying to design an AI that can classify that malware that's coming in. We're hoping to get published in IEEE, which is a technology-based company. And so we're kind of hitting roadblocks to where a lot of the reports are done by foreign researchers. So a lot coming in from like China and some Philippines and stuff like that. And a lot of the material is actually super high level, so over our head. So when we're going through all this research, we're having to like take 3 steps back, go figure out what this 11 letter word means, and kind of go from there. So hopefully, starting next semester, we'll be on track of developing our AI. For the final question, it's a roundtable question. I'm going to open it up to all of our panelists. Starting with you, Captain Lawal, what are you most proud of when it comes to the cyber career field?
At the risk of sounding kind of cheesy, honestly, it's my airmen and my cadets that I've had the opportunity to train and teach. It is so cool, just awesome to see where people go. And I kind of see my job as a force multiplier. So even before I came here to teach formally, I was a trainer in my unit. And just that moment, that light bulb moment of seeing people get something is just an amazing, amazing feeling for me.
Thank you, ma'am. Major Cross?
I say the best thing about the cyber career field is there's so much to do. There's so many things you can do. I started off in an air mobility operations squadron from the academy, and everybody was like, "What is that?" And so when I got there, it was probably the best. It was a very awesome assignment to have as a second lieutenant, because I got to go to multiple places, Korea, Hawaii, supporting the AOC and supporting the air mobility division as a second lieutenant. It was amazing. So the best thing about our career field is there's so much opportunity. You can go anywhere in the Air Force. There's always, cyber is everywhere. So there's nothing's holding you back. That's the one best thing about our career field.
Mr. Kennedy?
Most proud of our career field, man. I hate to say it, but we're pretty legit. And I've seen it in space where they're sitting there and they have like all this data and they have all these different modules that aren't connecting. And then next thing you know, you bring in some 17S with an incredible software skill or just a hobby. And then they develop all these APIs, these plugins that can tie them all together and then plug them into a graphical representation in the form of Kibana. If you never use Kibana, Kibana's legit. And then the next thing you know, the generals are happy, people are winning awards and great. And all it took was one person to come in and say, "Oh yeah, I know how to do this," because they understand everything is software. The F-35 is software. The F-22 is software. Everything is software. Everything is computers. And if you are a master of that domain, like if you can program and script, you are going to be deadly. And I see it everywhere. The Air Force Academy produces a ton of pilots, more pilots than any other AFSC. And to see a scheduler in a flying squadron just get helped out by a 17S or 1 Bravo 4 that comes in and say, "Oh, I can script that out for you." And they create a Python script or create something for them to manage a flying schedule. That's it. Like, they're like a god walking around an F-16 squadron, even though they aren't a flyer. So I'm most proud of that, that we just have constant impact across virtually every other AFSC. Because if they use email, I mean, we got it.
Lieutenant Colonel Wright?
Yeah, basically just what, Clyde and Matt touched on is that all the cool things, our career field does, and it's very wide open right now. But, for our decision makers, our senior leaders, our 3 stars and 4 stars, I mean, they are surrounded by comm as soon as they walk in the office, and they use that comm, to make key decisions. So if you are, master your domain, like Matt was saying, you can go far and do a lot of cool things. Probably my proudest moment was actually when my team and I got to support space shuttle launches back during 2009 to 2011. We got to support 9 launches, and we basically deployed our equipment out to Cape Canaveral and made sure that the fighters that were basically doing a patrol over the airspace over Kennedy Center in support of NORAD, we sent the air picture up to them. So we directly supported that effort, and feel very proud about that, to know that, we're part of that mission that retired in 2011. And really being part of the Homeland Defense mission has been the best part of my career as a comm officer, cyber.
Yes, ma'am. I think for me, I have a little different perspective on this, just because I haven't been operational yet. So I'm going to speak more to the academy side of things, just what I see here involving cyber in some of the classes, because my cyber and computer knowledge span further than just the department. They also offer MSS classes and a few other things where we talk about space and cyberspace strategies, capabilities, things like that. And I think from everything that I've taken in just from guest speakers, my classes, and interacting with my peers, I think I'm most proud of our ability to adapt when it comes to cyberspace, because as Lieutenant Colonel Wright stated earlier, it's forever changing and it's so much different than it was 20 years ago. And so with technology and capabilities coming in from every angle, we have to be able to adapt and be super flexible and continue promoting education and training in that aspect. And I think spreading the awareness of that, just saying, cyber is in every aspect of warfighting, every domain, and spreading awareness of how important that is. And like speaking back to the disinformation, how important it is for people to understand how cyber works and its impact on real life situations, even outside of the military, is super good. And so I'm really proud of people's just involvement in cyber and their willingness to learn and take into account. And I think that helps in every domain and every sense of education and training. And I think I'm really proud of that and super excited to see like what the future holds for cyber and people in the career field. That was our last question. I would like to thank you all for attending our virtual panel, and I would like to thank our panelists for sharing their time with us tonight. This concludes our virtual event. Have a good evening.